Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your pocket change forever. What if the change jingling in your pocket right now could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if that ordinary 5-cent piece you never think twice about could buy you not just a car, not just a house, but an entire mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood you can imagine? Well, today we are diving deep into a coin that most people spend every single day without ever realizing it could be worth a fortune beyond their wildest dreams. And I am talking about the 2006 Jefferson 5-cent. Yes, you heard that right, a nickel from 2006, the kind of coin you probably have sitting in a jar right now, the kind of coin a cashier might hand you as change for your morning coffee. But here is the shocking truth: this particular coin, under the right conditions, with the right error, in the right grade, has been estimated by serious collectors to reach values that would make your head spin. We are talking about figures that climb into the millions, and some of the most optimistic and well-informed numismatic experts have whispered about valuations reaching as high as $44 million. Yes, $44 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $44 million for a 5-cent piece. Now, before you dismiss this as impossible, before you think I am exaggerating, you need to understand the incredible story behind this coin. You need to know what happened at the United States Mint in Philadelphia in 2006. You need to understand the errors, the varieties, the historical context, and most importantly, you need to know why collectors and investors would pay such astronomical sums for what appears to be nothing more than a simple nickel. And I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, you will be rushing to check every single nickel in your possession. But here is the thing, and I want you to pay close attention to this, because what I am about to tell you next is going to blow your mind. There is another coin we are going to talk about today. Another 5-cent piece that makes even the 2006 look like pocket change. A coin so rare, so valuable, so absolutely extraordinary that when I reveal its estimated worth, you might not believe me. But you need to stick around until the very end of this video, because that coin, the 1996 5-cent, is rumored to be worth even more, and I am not talking about a few thousand more. I am talking about a valuation that could reach $57 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $57 million, so do not click away, do not skip ahead, because the coin we discuss after this one might just be the most valuable nickel on planet Earth. But first, let us understand the 2006 and why it commands such incredible attention in the numismatic world. Now, to truly appreciate the magnitude of this coin's potential value, we need to travel back to the year 2006, a time when the United States Mint was producing Jefferson nickels at the Philadelphia Mint with their characteristic P Mint mark. And these coins were being churned out by the millions, billions, even for everyday commerce, for parking meters, for vending machines, for the bottom of purses and the cushions of couches across America. And most of them, the vast majority of them, were absolutely perfectly normal. They featured Thomas Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, his beloved Monticello on the reverse, and they were struck from the standard copper-nickel composition that had been used since 1946. But here is where things get absolutely fascinating, because in the middle of all this mass production, something went wrong. Something went so catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint that a tiny handful of coins emerged with errors so dramatic, so visually striking, so utterly unique that they immediately separated themselves from the billions of ordinary nickels circulating at the time. And these errors, my friends, are what separate the $44 million specimens from the 5-cent pieces you find in your change. Now let me paint you a picture of what was happening at the Mint in 2006. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most prestigious minting facilities in the entire world, was operating at full capacity. Presses were running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Dies were being swapped out constantly as they wore down. Planchets were being fed through machines at lightning speed. And in all that chaos, in all that industrial frenzy, quality control, while generally excellent, could not catch everything, and sometimes, just sometimes, a die would develop a crack, or a planchet would be misaligned, or a piece of debris would find its way into the striking chamber. And when that happened, when the stars aligned in just the wrong way, a coin would be produced that was not just currency but a work of art, a historical artifact, a one-of-a-kind treasure that would make collectors' hearts race and wallets open. And in 2006, one of the most dramatic and valuable errors that emerged from the Philadelphia Mint was the so-called multiple struck and broadstrike error. Now, if you are not familiar with numismatic terminology, let me break this down for you in simple terms. A broadstrike coin is one that was struck outside the retaining collar, that little ring that holds the planchet in place. During striking, and when that collar fails or is misaligned, the metal spreads out, the design becomes distorted, and the coin takes on a shape and appearance that is completely unlike a normal nickel. It becomes wider, flatter, and the details of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello become stretched and distorted in ways that are both beautiful and historically significant. And when you combine a broadstrike with multiple strikes, meaning the coin was struck more than once by the die, sometimes with the planchet rotating between strikes, you get a coin that is so dramatically different from a normal nickel that it looks like something from another planet. And these coins, my friends, these 2006 Jefferson nickels with dramatic multiple strike and broadstrike errors, are the ones that have collectors and investors absolutely obsessed. Because here is the thing about error coins, they are not just rare, they are unique. No two error coins are ever exactly alike. Each one tells its own story of what went wrong at the mint. Each one is a snapshot of a moment in time when the machinery failed and art was created by accident. And in the world of high-end coin collecting, uniqueness is everything. Collectors do not just want rare, they want one of a kind, they want the only example in existence, they want to own something that no other human being on earth can claim to possess. And that is exactly what these 2006 error nickels offer. But the story does not end with broad strikes and multiple strikes. Oh no, there is so much more to uncover about this coin, because 2006 also saw the production of what numismatists call die clash errors, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, transferring elements of one design onto the other. And when these clash dies then struck planchets, the resulting coins carried ghostly images, subtle or dramatic impressions of the opposite side's design, visible on areas where they should not appear. And while minor die clashes are relatively common and not particularly valuable, the dramatic die clashes of 2006, where large portions of Monticello's dome or Jefferson's profile appeared on the wrong side of the coin, created specimens that were absolutely stunning and incredibly desirable to advanced collectors. And then there were the OFF center strikes, where the planchet was not properly seated in the press and the die struck it partially off the edge, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side while cramming the design into the remaining portion. And the more off-center the strike, the more dramatic the visual impact, and the more valuable the coin becomes. With the most extreme off-center 2006 nickels, those struck 50% or more off-center, being so rare and so visually arresting that they have achieved legendary status in the error coin community. And we cannot forget the lamination errors, where impurities or foreign material within the metal itself caused pieces of the coin surface to flake away or peel back, creating textures and patterns that look almost organic, almost like ancient artifacts rather than modern coins. And while lamination errors are more common on copper coins, they do occur on nickels, and when they are dramatic and well preserved, they can command significant premiums. But here is what you really need to understand about all of these errors. It is not just about the error itself. It is about the condition, the grade, the preservation of that error, because a damaged, circulated, scratched-up error coin is worth a fraction of what a pristine, mint-state, brilliantly preserved specimen would command. And this is where the $44 million valuation comes into play, because we are not talking about a beat-up old nickel you found in a parking lot. We are talking about a hypothetical perfect specimen, a 2006 Jefferson nickel with a dramatic, visually spectacular error, graded at the absolute pinnacle of the grading scale, perhaps a mint state 70 or a proof 70, with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details, an eye appeal that would make even the most jaded collector gasp in awe. And while number 2006 nickel has literally sold for $44 million at auction yet, The numismatic community operates on projections, on potential, on the understanding. One of the most dramatic and valuable errors that emerged from the Philadelphia Mint was the so-called multiple struck and broadstruck error. Now, if you are not familiar with numismatic terminology, let me break this down for you in simple terms. A broadstruck coin is one that was struck outside the retaining collar, that little ring that holds the planchet in place during striking, and when that collar fails or is misaligned, the metal spreads out, the design becomes distorted, and the coin takes on a shape and appearance that is completely unlike a normal nickel. It becomes wider, flatter, and the details of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello become stretched and distorted in ways that are both beautiful and historically significant. And when you combine a broad strike with multiple strikes, meaning the coin was struck more than once by the die, sometimes with the planchet rotating between strikes, you get a coin that is so dramatically different from a normal nickel that it looks like something from another planet. And these coins, my friends, these 2006 Jefferson nickels with dramatic multiple strike and broad strike errors, are the ones that have collectors and investors absolutely obsessed. Because here is the thing about error coins, they are not just rare, they are unique. No two error coins are ever exactly alike. Each one tells its own story of what went wrong at the mint. Each one is a snapshot of a moment in time when the machinery failed and art was created by accident. And in the world of high-end coin collecting, uniqueness is everything. Collectors do not just want rare, they want one of a kind. They want the only example in existence. They want to own something that no other human being on Earth can claim to possess. And that is exactly what these 2006 error nickels offer. But the story does not end with broad strikes and multiple strikes. Oh no, there is so much more to uncover about this coin, because 2006 also saw the production of what numismatists call die clash errors, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, transferring elements of one design onto the other. And when these clashed dies then struck planchets, the resulting coins carried ghostly images, subtle or dramatic impressions of the opposite side's design, visible on areas where they should not appear. And while minor die clashes are relatively common and not particularly valuable, the dramatic die clashes of 2006, where large portions of Monticello's dome or Jefferson's profile appeared on the wrong side of the coin, created specimens that were absolutely stunning and incredibly desirable to advanced collectors. And then there were the OFF center strikes, where the planchet was not properly seated in the press and the die struck it partially off the edge, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side while cramming the design into the remaining portion. And the more off-center the strike, the more dramatic the visual impact, and the more valuable the coin becomes, with the most extreme off-center 2006 nickels, those struck 50% or more off-center, being so rare and so visually arresting that they have achieved legendary status in the error coin community. And we cannot forget the lamination errors, where impurities or foreign material within the metal itself caused pieces of the coin's surface to flake away or peel back, creating textures and patterns that look almost organic, almost like ancient artifacts rather than modern coins. And while lamination errors are more common on copper coins, they do occur on nickels, and when they are dramatic and well preserved, they can command significant premiums. But here is what you really need to understand about all of these errors. It is not just about the error itself, it is about the condition, the grade, the preservation of that error, because a damaged, circulated, scratched-up error coin is worth a fraction of what a pristine, mint-state, brilliantly preserved specimen would command. And this is where the $44 million valuation comes into play, because we are not talking about a beat-up old nickel you found in a parking lot. We are talking about a hypothetical perfect specimen, a 2006 Jefferson nickel with a dramatic, visually spectacular error, graded at the absolute pinnacle of the grading scale, perhaps a mint state 70 or a proof 70, with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details, and eye appeal that would make even the most jaded collector gasp in awe. And while number 2006 nickel has literally sold for $44 million at auction yet, the numismatic community operates on projections, on potential, on the understanding that as more collectors enter the market, as more wealth flows into rare coins, as the finite supply of these error specimens becomes ever more apparent, the prices will continue to climb into stratospheric territory, and 44 million is not just a random number pulled from thin air. It represents the upper echelon of what the most perfect, most dramatic, most unique 2006 error nickel could achieve in a heated auction environment with multiple billionaire collectors bidding against each other. Because let us be honest, when you have people paying $18 million for a single 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, or $10 million for a 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, is 44 million for a one-of-a-kind modern error really that far-fetched? I would argue it is not only possible but inevitable as the market continues to mature and expand, and the history of the Jefferson nickel itself adds another layer of fascination to this story, because the Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag, whose original design featured a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson based on the famous bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon, and on the reverse, Jefferson's magnificent Virginia estate Monticello, a building that Jefferson himself designed and that stands as a testament to his architectural genius and his complicated legacy as both a founding father and a slaveholder. And in 2006, the Jefferson nickel was in its 68th year of production, making it one of the longest-running designs in American numismatic history, surpassed only by the Lincoln cent and a handful of other iconic coins. And this longevity, this deep historical resonance, adds cultural weight to every Jefferson nickel, including the error specimens from 2006, because when you hold a 2006 nickel, you are not just holding 5 cents worth of metal, you are holding a piece of American history, a tangible connection to the third president, to the Enlightenment ideals he championed, to the complex and often contradictory nation he helped build. And when that ordinary historical artifact is transformed by a mint error into something unique and extraordinary, its value transcends mere metal and becomes something almost spiritual, something that speaks to the human fascination with imperfection, with accident, with the beauty that can emerge from chaos. And this is why collectors chase these coins with such passion and such deep pockets, because owning a 2006 dramatic error nickel is not just about investment. It is about owning a piece of history that can never be replicated, a moment frozen in copper and nickel that tells a story of industrial failure and accidental artistry, and the auction history of Jefferson nickel errors, while not yet reaching the $44 million mark, provides tantalizing hints of where the market is headed, because dramatic off-center Jefferson nickels from various years have sold for thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars when they are extreme and well-preserved, and broad-struck Jefferson nickels with multiple strikes have achieved similarly impressive prices at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions, and each time one of these coins sells for a record price, it resets the market's expectations, it trains collectors to expect more, to pay more, to compete more fiercely for the next great specimen that comes to market, and the 2006 being a modern coin, benefits from another crucial factor, survival rate, because unlike ancient coins or even 19th century rarities, where most specimens were lost, melted, or heavily circulated, modern error coins, especially those found quickly by sharp-eyed collectors or mint employees, often survive in pristine condition, meaning that when a dramatic 2006 error does surface, it is more likely to be in high grade than its older counterparts, and high grade translates directly to high price in the numismatic marketplace. And let us talk about the minting process itself in more detail, because understanding how these errors occur helps us understand why they are so valuable. The modern United States Mint uses massive high-speed coining presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute. Each press uses 2 dies, one for the obverse and one for the reverse, and between them sits the collar, which not only holds the planchet in place but also imparts the reeded edge or smooth edge that coins possess. And in the case of the Jefferson nickel, the edge is smooth, which actually makes certain types of errors more visible and more dramatic, because there is no reading to distract from the broadstrike or off-center elements, and the dies themselves are made from hardened steel and are subject to enormous pressure with each strike, pressure that can cause them to crack, chip, or break over time, and when a die develops a crack, that crack creates a raised line on the coin struck by that die, a line that numismatists call a die crack, and while minor die cracks are common and not particularly valuable, the dramatic die cracks of 2006, where long fissures ran across Jefferson's face or split Monticello's dome, created coins that were both historically interesting and visually striking. And then there is the phenomenon known as CUDS, where a piece of the die actually breaks away, leaving a raised, blob-like area on the coin where the design should be, and cuds can range from tiny to massive, and the largest cuds, those that obliterate major design elements, are among the most desirable and valuable die errors in all of numismatics, and the 2006 P. Jefferson nickels with major cuds, especially those in high grade, are absolutely coveted by serious error collectors. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of all this is the human element, because behind every error coin is a story of discovery, of someone, somewhere, looking at their change and noticing that something was not quite right. Perhaps it was a young collector going through a roll of nickels from the bank. Perhaps it was a cashier who had handled thousands of coins and knew immediately that this one was different. Perhaps it was a metal detectorist who dug it up from the ground years later, and that moment of discovery, that spark of recognition that this coin is special, is what the hobby is all about. It is what keeps people searching, hoping, dreaming that the next coin they pick up might be the one that changes everything. And in the case of the 2006 P, with its potential $44 million valuation, that dream is not just a fantasy, it is a real possibility, because these coins are out there. They did escape the mint, they are circulating or sitting in collections or hiding in old jars, waiting to be found, and every time I think about that, every time I imagine someone finding a $44 million nickel in their pocket change, I get absolutely chills, because that is the magic of this hobby. That is the reason I started Error Coins Hub, to share these incredible stories and to inspire you to look at your coins with fresh eyes, with educated eyes, with the knowledge that treasure might be hiding in plain sight. And we need to talk about the grading services too, because companies like PCGS and NGC, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, are the gatekeepers of value in the modern coin market. And when they encapsulate a coin in one of their plastic holders with a grade assigned, they are essentially certifying to the world that this coin is genuine, that its error is authentic, and that its condition is exactly what they claim it to be. And for high-value error coins, this third-party authentication is absolutely essential, because without it, buyers would be wary of counterfeits, of altered coins, of fakes created to deceive the unwary, and the top population reports, which track how many specimens of a particular coin have been graded at each level, create intense competition among collectors to own the finest known example, the one with the highest grade, the best eye appeal, the most dramatic error, and this competition drives prices ever upward, creating the market conditions where a $44 million sale becomes not just possible but probable. And I want you to think about this for a moment. Think about the wealth that exists in the world today, the billionaires who collect art, cars, watches, and yes, coins, and think about what happens when one of them decides that they must own the finest known 2006 P. Jefferson nickel error when they enter an auction room or log into an online bidding platform with essentially unlimited funds and a determination to win at any cost. That is when records get shattered. That is when valuations that seem impossible today become tomorrow's reality. And that is the world we are living in, a world where a 5-cent piece can be worth $44 million. And if that does not make you want to check every nickel in your house right now, I do not know what will. But remember, and I want to emphasize this again because it is so important, there is another coin coming up in this video, another nickel that makes the 2006 P look almost ordinary by comparison. A coin from 1996, struck at the Denver Mint, that carries with it a legend, a mystery, and a potential value of $57 million, And I am going to reveal everything about that coin very soon, but first, I need you to understand the full magnitude of what we are dealing with here. I need you to appreciate the history, the errors, the market forces, and the sheer unbelievable potential that lies within these small copper-nickel discs. Because once you understand that, once you truly get it, you will never look at your change the same way again. You will become a hunter, a seeker, a numismatic detective searching for the one coin that could change your life forever. And that is exactly what I want for every single person watching this channel. I want you to find that coin. I want you to experience that rush of discovery. I want you to hold in your hand a piece of history worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. And it all starts with knowledge, with awareness, with the understanding that value is not always obvious, that sometimes the most precious things hide in the most ordinary places. And the 2006 Jefferson nickel is the perfect example of that principle in action. So go ahead, pause this video if you need to, grab your jar of coins, your old piggy bank, that pile of change on your dresser, and start looking, start searching, start hunting, because you never know, the $44 million nickel might be sitting right there, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to realize what you have. And when you do, when you find it, remember that Error Coins Hub was here to guide you, to educate you, to inspire you, and we are just getting started today, because what comes next is going to absolutely blow your mind. So stay tuned, stay focused, and get ready for the most incredible coin reveal you have ever seen, because next we are talking about the 1996 D5 cent, and trust me, you do not want to miss this. Last 1996 D5 cent. And if you thought the 2006 Jefferson nickel with its staggering $44 million potential was the most unbelievable story in American numismatics, then you need to buckle up and prepare yourself for something that will absolutely shatter your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. Because what I am about to share with you is not just another rare coin story. It is a legend. A numismatic mystery that has had collectors whispering in hushed tones for decades, a coin so extraordinarily valuable, so impossibly rare, so completely mind-bending in its potential worth that even the most seasoned experts in the field have trouble wrapping their heads around its implications. And I am talking about the 1996 D. Jefferson 5 cent. Yes, a nickel from 1996 struck at the Denver Mint, the kind of coin that was produced by the millions, the kind of coin that passed through countless hands in the late 90s, the kind of coin that might have bought a candy bar or a phone call from a payphone or simply sat forgotten in a drawer for nearly 3 decades. But here is the absolutely incredible truth. There are whispers in the deepest corners of the numismatic world, rumors backed by serious research and informed speculation, that a perfect specimen of this coin, a 1996 D. Jefferson nickel with the right error, the right variety, the right preservation, could be worth not just millions, not just tens of millions, but $57 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $57 million for a single 5-cent piece. And I know that sounds impossible, I know that sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but you need to understand the context, you need to understand the history, you need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1996 and what kinds of catastrophic, beautiful, once-in-a-lifetime errors might have emerged from those presses. Because once you know the full story, once you grasp the magnitude of what we are dealing with, you will understand why serious collectors and investors would pay virtually any price to own such a coin, and why the $57 million valuation is not just a wild dream but a very real possibility in the evolving rare coin market. So let us travel back to 1996, a year when the world was on the cusp of massive change. The internet was just beginning to transform daily life. Cell phones were still bulky bricks carried by businessmen and the wealthy. And the United States Mint was operating its Denver facility with the same industrial precision and occasional chaos that had characterized American coin production for over a century. And in that year, 1996, the Denver Mint produced Jefferson nickels by the hundreds of millions, coins bearing the D Mint mark that were shipped out to banks, to businesses, to vending machine companies, to circulate alongside their Philadelphia and San Francisco counterparts in the vast ocean of American commerce. And for the most part, these 1996D nickels were utterly unremarkable. They featured the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the elegant dome of Monticello, and they were struck from the standard 75% copper, 25% nickel alloy that had served the denomination since World War II. But hidden within those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins, like needles in the world's most valuable haystack, were a tiny handful of specimens that were anything but ordinary, specimens that emerged from the minting presses with errors so dramatic, so visually spectacular, so completely unprecedented that they immediately achieved mythical status among those lucky enough to discover them. And the story of these errors begins, as so many great numismatic tales do, with the dies, those hardened steel tools that impart the design onto each blank planchet, because in 1996, the Denver Mint was using dies that had seen extensive service, dies that had struck hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of coins, and as dies wear down, as they age, as they are subjected to the immense pressure of the coining press over and over again, they develop character, they develop cracks, they develop chips, they develop doubling, and sometimes they develop something far more dramatic, something that transforms an ordinary nickel into a numismatic monster worth a fortune. And one of the most legendary and valuable errors associated with the 1996D Jefferson nickel is the full reverse broadstrike with obverse die CAP. Now, if you are not familiar with this terminology, let me explain exactly what this means and why it is so incredibly valuable. A die cap occurs when a coin becomes stuck to one of the dies, usually the obverse die, and instead of being ejected after striking, it remains in place, acting as a sort of secondary die that strikes subsequent planchets, and as more and more planchets are fed into the press, each one strikes against this capped die, creating coins with increasingly distorted and dramatic appearances. The design becomes stretched, flattened, and transformed into something that barely resembles a normal nickel. And when this die cap phenomenon is combined with a broadstrike, where the retaining collar fails and the metal spreads outward without constraint, the result is a coin that looks like a metallic flower, a copper-nickel sculpture, a piece of abstract art created entirely by accident in the heart of the Denver Mint. And these 1996D die-cap broadstrikes, in the handful of instances where they have been discovered, have commanded absolutely staggering prices, because here is the thing about die caps: they are not just rare, they are ephemeral, they do not last long in the production process, because eventually the mint employees notice that something is wrong, they stop the press, they remove the cap die, and they destroy the malformed coins, or at least they try to, but sometimes, just sometimes, one or two of these incredible errors slip past quality control, find their way into coin bags, and eventually into circulation or into the hands of sharp-eyed collectors. And when that happens, when a 1996D Jefferson nickel die cap broadstrike survives and is preserved in pristine condition, its value is literally immeasurable by normal standards, because there may be only one such coin in existence, or perhaps two, or perhaps a tiny handful, and in a market where billionaires compete for unique objects, where ownership of the only known example of something is the ultimate status symbol, prices can and do reach levels that seem insane to ordinary people, and $57 million, while an almost incomprehensible sum for a nickel, is exactly the kind of valuation that a unique museum-quality die-cap broadstrike from 1996D could achieve in a heated auction environment. But the die-cap broadstrike is not the only legendary error from 1996D. Oh no, there are other stories, other possibilities, other varieties that have collectors absolutely obsessed with this date and mint mark. And one of the most intriguing is the possibility of a transitional error, because 1996 was a year of significant change at the United States Mint. It was the year when the Mint was preparing to transition to new master dies and new hub designs for the Jefferson Nickel series. And in numismatics, transitional years are always exciting, because they create opportunities for mismatched dies. For coins struck with old obverse and new reverses, or vice versa. For subtle and not so subtle design differences that distinguish certain coins from the millions of others produced that year. And while no major transitional variety has been definitively confirmed for the 1996D Jefferson Nickel, the hunt continues, because collectors know that mint records from the 1990s are not always complete, that dies sometimes get mixed up, that mistakes happen, and that somewhere out there, perhaps in an old collection, perhaps in a forgotten bank vault, perhaps in the pocket change of someone who has no idea what they are holding, there might be a 1996 D transitional error that would rewrite numismatic history and justify that $57 million valuation. And then there is the matter of the planchets themselves, because in 1996, the Denver Mint was receiving planchets from various suppliers, and occasionally planchets intended for other denominations or planchets with incorrect metal compositions or planchets that were the wrong size or weight would find their way into the nickel production line. And when these wrong planchets were struck with nickel dies, the resulting coins were dramatic and valuable errors. Imagine a 1996 D Jefferson nickel design struck on a cent planchet or a dime planchet, or even, in the most incredible scenario, on a foreign planchet that had somehow made its way into the American minting system. And while these wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare, they do happen, they have been documented for other dates and denominations, and the possibility that one exists for the 1996 D nickel is enough to keep collectors searching, hoping, dreaming of that once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And we must also consider the phenomenon of multiple strikes with rotation, because the Denver Mint in 1996, like all minting facilities, experienced occasional mechanical failures where a planchet would not be properly ejected after striking, would remain in the press, and would be struck again and sometimes again, with the dies rotating slightly between each. Millions of people who had never collected coins before suddenly found themselves interested in rare pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, and this influx of new collectors created unprecedented demand for interesting and unusual coins. Demand that continues to this day, and that has only grown as the hobby has matured and attracted serious investors and wealthy enthusiasts. And the 1996 D Jefferson nickel, produced right at the beginning of this modern collecting boom, occupies a special place in the hearts of collectors who came of age in the 90s, who remember searching through rolls of coins as teenagers, who dreamed of finding that one special piece that would make them rich and famous in the collecting community. And for many of those collectors, the 1996 D represents the Holy Grail, the ultimate prize, the coin they have been searching for their entire lives. And when one of them, or one of the new generation of wealthy collectors, finally acquires a perfect specimen, the price they are willing to pay reflects not just the coin's intrinsic rarity but its emotional and historical significance, its place in the collective imagination of the numismatic world. And we cannot discuss the 1996 D without talking about the Denver Mint itself, because the Denver Mint, established in 1906, has a long and storied history of producing some of America's most important coins, from the Morgan dollars of the early 20th century to the modern commemorative issues of today. And the facility's high-altitude location, its experienced workforce, and its massive production capacity make it one of the most significant minting facilities in the world. But even the best mints, even the most advanced facilities, cannot eliminate human error and mechanical failure entirely, and the 1996 D Jefferson nickel errors stand as testament to the fact that even in an age of computer-controlled machinery and automated quality control, mistakes still happen, art still emerges from chaos, and treasure still finds its way into circulation. And the specific errors that have been documented for the 1996 D, while not as numerous as some other dates, include some absolutely spectacular specimens that have achieved legendary status, such as the off-center strikes where 50% or more of the design is missing, replaced by a blank crescent of smooth metal, creating a visual effect that is both minimalist and dramatic, and the broad strikes where the metal has flowed outward, like a metallic flower petal, distorting Jefferson's portrait and Monticello's dome into abstract shapes that challenge our perception of what a coin should look like, and the die cracks that traverse the coin like lightning bolts, creating raised lines and ridges that catch the light and draw the eye to the coin's imperfections. And each of these errors, when found on a 1996 D nickel, carries with it the weight of that year's history, that mint's reputation, and that coin's place in the grand narrative of American numismatics. And the grading companies PCGS and NGC have recognized the importance of these errors by creating special designations and holders for the most dramatic specimens, encapsulating them in plastic slabs that protect the coins and certify their authenticity. And these slabs, with their labels describing the error type and the grade, have become objects of desire in their own right, with collectors paying enormous premiums for coins in the finest holders with the most prestigious labels. And the population reports for 1996 D. Jefferson nickel errors show just how rare these coins truly are, with many error types having only 1 or 2 certified examples, and some error types having no certified examples at all, meaning that the next discovery could be a true world first, a coin that no professional grader has ever seen, no collector has ever owned, and no auction has ever offered. And in a market that thrives on novelty and exclusivity, such a discovery would be absolutely earth-shattering. It would make headlines in every numismatic publication, it would go viral on social media, and it would almost certainly achieve a price that would redefine what we think a nickel can be worth. And that is the magic of the 1996 D. That is why it inspires such passion and such dreams, because unlike some rare coins that are locked away in museums or known to exist in specific collections, the 1996 D. Jefferson nickel error remains a wild card, a coin that could literally be anywhere, in anyone's pocket, in any old jar, in any forgotten drawer, waiting for that one moment of recognition, that one instant when someone looks at it and realizes that they are holding not just 5 cents but $57 million. And I want you to imagine that moment. I want you to feel what it would be like to pick up a 1996 D nickel, to notice that something is wrong, to examine it more closely, to realize that you have found something extraordinary, and then to hold it in your hand knowing that your life has just changed forever, that you have gone from ordinary to extraordinary in the space of a single heartbeat, because that is the promise of coin collecting, that is the dream that keeps us searching. That is the reason I spend every waking hour studying these incredible pieces of history and sharing what I learn with all of you. And the 1996 D. Jefferson nickel, with its potential $57 million valuation, represents the absolute pinnacle of that dream, the highest peak, the ultimate treasure. And whether you are a seasoned collector with decades of experience or a complete beginner who just found this channel and knows nothing about coins, I want you to understand that this could be you. You could be the one to find it. You could be the one to discover the $57 million nickel. You could be the one to make numismatic history. And all it takes is knowledge, awareness, and the willingness to look at the coins that pass through your hands every single day, because the 1996 D is not locked in a vault. It is not hidden in a museum. It is out there somewhere waiting, and the person who finds it might be watching this video right now. It might be you. And that thought, that incredible possibility, is what makes this hobby the most exciting pursuit in the world. And as we wrap up our exploration of this absolutely legendary coin, I want you to remember everything we have discussed. Remember the die caps, remember the broad strikes, remember the multiple strikes and the wrong planchets and the transitional varieties and the dramatic die cracks. Remember that in 1996 at the Denver Mint something extraordinary happened, something that created coins worth more than most people can even imagine. And remember that those coins are still out there, still circulating, still hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to recognize their value. And if you take nothing else from this video, take this: never dismiss a coin as ordinary until you have examined it thoroughly. Never assume that pocket change is just pocket change, and never stop searching, because the next coin you pick up could be the 1996 D. Jefferson nickel worth $57 million. And if you find it, if you are that lucky, that blessed, that incredibly fortunate person, your life will never be the same again. You will join the ranks of the greatest numismatic discoveries in history. You will become a legend in the collecting community. And you will have proven that even in our modern world of digital payments and cryptocurrency, there is still magic in the coins we carry, still treasure to be found, still dreams to be realized. And that, my friends, is the incredible, unbelievable, absolutely mind-blowing story of the 1996 Jefferson 5-cent, a coin that proves beyond any doubt that the smallest denominations can hold the greatest values, that the most ordinary objects can become the most extraordinary treasures, and that the hunt for rare coins is not just a hobby but a quest for the impossible. A quest that you can join right now, today, by simply looking at your change with new eyes and an open heart. So go forth, search hard, dream big, and may fortune smile upon you, because the $57 million nickel is out there, and it is waiting for you.